In this movie, I want to consider the very important issue of rendering performance in Unity when working with 2D games. In particular, I want to have a look at the issue of Atlas texturing and how this can optimize our performance. So what I have in front of me here is the Unity editor, and I'm simply continuing on from the previous video that we saw already. And here we have the project panel with a collection of textures that we've imported into the project. So I'm going to select the player character here and drag and drop the head into the hierarchy panel so we can see that the head arranged in the scene here. And if I click on the stats panel, remember we're on the game tab here and not the scene tab. If I click the stats panel over here, you can see that we have the setting batches and it says batches 3. Now if I click and drag, for example, the gem into the hierarchy panel to add that to the scene, although it obscures the head, both the head and the gem are in the scene, and you can see the batches count has increased to 4. I can click and drag the platform into the hierarchy panel and we'll see now that the batches has increased to 5. So it seems that for each unique sprite that we add to the scene, it increases the batches count by 1. Now that generally is a bad thing. The batches count tells you the number of different processes and steps that Unity has to go through to successfully render our scene finally to the game camera here. The higher the number the batches is, the more work that Unity has to perform for each render. So ideally what we want to do to optimize performance is to keep this value as low as possible while getting the results that we need. So we want batches to be as low as possible, and one of the ways that we can do that is by using Atlas texturing. So I want to show you how that works. Basically, Atlas texturing allows us to select different textures down here in the project panel and to group them together so that Unity can paste them into a single larger texture which it references and uses internally instead of these separate images here. So for example, what we want to do is to group together related textures. So in this project panel, I can identify the player character, the gem, and the platform to all be props. They are related textures. These 3 textures can be grouped together into a single and larger image. So I'm going to select all 3 of these textures, and over here in the Object Inspector, under the setting that says Packing Tag, all I have to do is give them the same name. So I'm going to regard these as props. So I'm going to call these props, press Enter on the keyboard, scroll down, and then click the button that says Apply. Now when I do that, the Packing Tag props has been applied to all 3 of the textures that were selected, and I can confirm that by, for example, selecting the child character. You can see it has a packing tag of props, gem, same tag, platform, the same tag. Now although these 3 textures have all been assigned the same tag, you can see here in the game tab the batches count has not reduced. That is simply because we haven't yet pressed the play button on the toolbar. Unity is going to perform an additional process. So if I press play on the toolbar, you can see Unity goes ahead and does something extra, and notice the batches count now has been reduced all the way down from 5 to 3. It has recognized that in fact we are using an Atlas texture. We can confirm that by choosing Window, and there is a window here called Sprite Packer. If I select the Sprite Packer window, it displays a new window inside the Unity editor that I will drag in here, and you can see what Unity has done here. It has compiled together the 3 textures, or the 3 sprites, into a single texture atlas. The size of this is 256 by 512. Internally, Unity is using this texture as opposed to the independent images that we imported. So by using Atlas texturing, we can significantly improve the performance of our games. So I'm going to stop playback and just close this editor here. And I'm going to go back down here to the project panel. Notice that now I'm back in editor mode. The batches has gone back to 5, but that's absolutely fine. It's just an indication that the sprite packing only really takes effect while the game is running. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to select these other textures that we have in the project panel and group those by using packing tags too. So I'm going to select this first texture here, which is part of the background, and in fact all of these subsequent textures here are also part of the backgrounds. So I'm going to click on the first one, hold down the Shift key and select the last one, and with all those backgrounds selected, I'm going to assign them the packing tag of background, and I'm going to press Apply on the Object Inspector here so that these now all share the single packing tag of background. This means that all of these backgrounds will be grouped together in one single larger Atlas texture that's called background, and these guys, the props, will be grouped together into a different one called props. We can press play on the toolbar again, and you'll see that Unity spends a bit longer compiling those textures, but once again we can confirm this, choose window and then choose sprite packer, and notice over here we've got the background group, and we also have a second background group as it's collated them together here, and we have the props group. So we have backgrounds group 1, background group 2, and then the props. So now it's compiled these together into 3 separate atlases, and by doing this we can really boost the performance of our 2D games. So when you're working with 2D games, make sure that all of your textures are grouped together using sensible packing tags.